Derek Carr might be out. Welcome, football fans, to some breaking NFL news. Derek Carr, quarterback of the New Orleans Saints, he's contemplating whether or not he's actually going to play in 2025. A serious shoulder injury could keep Derek Carr on the sideline for the Saints this season. So in this live stream here on Bleacher Report, I'm going to give you my options, whether it be free agents, trades, or, of course, the NFL draft, in which the New Orleans Saints hold the 9th overall pick in this year's NFL draft. And we're going to talk options to replace Derek Carr this season. Now, remember, Derek Carr didn't play the entirety of 2024. He actually played quite well when he was in for the Saints last season, but once he went down, it completely derailed the Saints' chances and season. They actually looked like a pretty formidable foe early last year. And then all of a sudden, they brought in the young in-house options of Spencer Rattler, who they drafted late in the draft last year, Jake Haener, and both of them failed miserably. Neither proved to have the talent or the ability to be an NFL starting quarterback. So just to start it off there, they do have Spencer Rattler. They do have Jake Haener. They do have these guys on the roster. These guys did play last season, but neither were impressive. Neither were good enough to be an NFL starting quarterback. So if Derek Carr is out, it's not confirmed, but it sounds like the Saints need to be making some moves, or at least one move, to ensure they have a starting caliber NFL quarterback. This is also a crossroad for the Saints franchise. A crossroads where, do the Saints decide to throw the season? Because the New Orleans Saints have been stuck in purgatory. They've been stuck in this space where they're decent, they're competitive, which has not allowed them to truly rebuild post Drew Brees' retirement and post Sean Payton. The Saints have been stuck in this space of trying to chase Tampa Bay, trying to chase what was, right? That Sean Payton glory years. It's no longer there. So to me, if I were the Saints, as 2Dat504 says in the chat, sign no one, tank for Arch. Now, we'll see on the Archie thing, guys, but I kind of agree. If I were the Saints, I'd probably just sit back, chill, and tank. Because some of these options I'm going to bring up in this video are probably going to do you too well. They're going to be too effective. Now, the one approach you could have is you go out there and try to get a younger quarterback with some upside. It's rather going to go really potentially well or really potentially awful. And it's never a bad idea to take a swing on a quarterback in the draft. It's never a bad idea. It's a cost-controlled contract. Even if that guy does not work out, it's not going to be the end of the world. You can still draft the quarterback the year following, as we've seen with, let's say, Arizona, Josh Rosen, and Kyler Murray. Thank you guys for joining me in the chat. Appreciate it. Phillip Rivers to the Saints, says Mark. I don't think Phillip Rivers is playing anymore, bro, but I could be wrong. That would be really, really entertaining. There's no doubt about it. Wrecked car, people are saying in the chat. Okay, we're having fun. Saints back to the paper bags just for the season. We'll see. I don't know, Russell, what you're talking about. Arch is not coming out next year. Peyton and Eli graduated. So will Arch. All right. Okay. Let's get to the quarterback options for the Saints. So I brought up the in-house options of Rattler and Haener. I think neither of them are going to be effective options. So where do we go first? Well, the guys that are readily available First, a big name that sparks to mind is Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is a free agent. He doesn't have to be traded for. He's out there to discuss a contract with. And Aaron Rodgers, if you're going to go boom or bust, go big or go home, Aaron Rodgers is probably one of the better options you could go for. Plus, it's only a 1-year deal. Aaron Rodgers is probably not playing beyond 2025. So that almost perfectly fits in with the timeline of Derek Carr coming back or the Saints moving on to a young quarterback in 2026. So if they want to pursue Aaron Rodgers, who I thought was better than most people thought last year, you look in deep to his numbers, his touchdown interception ratio, the play he had down the stretch, big time throws to turnover worthy plays where he ranked 4th in turnover worthy plays. He ranked top 10 in big time throws. Aaron Rodgers still played effective enough if he had a decent team around him, but he didn't have coaching or a team around him with the Jets, and the culture was out of whack. Now, would you want to bring Aaron Rodgers to a place with a rookie coach? Probably not a great idea. It's probably too big of a distraction, probably not a great culture fit, but Aaron Rodgers is a huge name. It does feel like Aaron Rodgers is probably going to go to the Steelers, but nothing has been solidified. Nothing has been signed. So I feel like if the Saints do want to pursue a 1-year deal for Aaron Rodgers, I don't think there's any downside to it necessarily for just one season to give it a go. I mean, you've got Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed, Alvin Kamara. You got enough pieces around him. If you can pick an offensive lineman at number 9, then all of a sudden you've got enough protection around him. The defense might be a little weak, but within this division, I feel like you'd have a shot. So you could go that approach. Second free agent quarterback that does come to mind is Carson Wentz. I don't think Carson Wentz is a starting quarterback anymore, but he is one of those options. I feel like he's probably the Steelers' alternative to Aaron Rodgers. So I wanted to throw him out there. Carson Wentz was the backup for the Chiefs last year. He started a ton of games. He can at least go in there and he knows what he's doing, but he's probably not going to be anything special at this rate. But at least he's a guy that's experienced starting, right? Then after that, you have trades, okay? Before we get to the draft, we have trades. There are a number of quarterbacks that they could trade for, and somebody brings up Teddy Bridgewater in the chat. He's a free agent as well. Teddy's been in and out of retirement, in and out of being a second or third string quarterback. I highly doubt Teddy Bridgewater would be able to go in there and be very effective as a starting quarterback at this point in his career. He's closer to retirement than, in my opinion, being a starting quarterback. So I think there's a reason that nobody's really signed him right now. So yeah, I just don't see Teddy maybe a few years ago as he was there in New Orleans and had a connection to the franchise, but he no longer really has that anymore. So maybe they bring him in for a veteran presence or something, but I don't think that he'd be the starter. Tanner McKee from the Eagles worked with the new head coach. That's a good one. We could bring that up as a potential trade. I'm not huge on Tanner McKee from what I've seen, but he has worked with Kellen Moore. So there's something there. There's some sort of connection there. But Kellen Moore has never had Tanner McKee as a starter, right? So it's a little bit different. Jameis Winston, I miss Jameis as that guy. He's already signed. So unfortunately, you're probably not going to get Jameis Winston from the Giants, although that would be very entertaining. I would love to see that. But yeah, Tanner McKee has a connection, hasn't really started a ton of games, has shown maybe a couple flashes when he's gotten the opportunity, but I don't know. Maybe that's an outside shot. Some guys that do come to mind in terms of trades. Aiden O'Connell from the Raiders has started the last couple of years, interchangeably with Gardner Minshew last year. Actually was pretty successful as a rookie with the Raiders under Antonio Pierce. So Aiden O'Connell, I like his arm strength. I like his size, his pocket presence. He's a pocket passer, pretty accurate guy. He just has very limited mobility, but at least he has a little bit of starting experience under his belt. He seems to be a very likable quarterback around the Raiders facility. And I feel like you could build a little bit of an offense around him. I thought he looked decent by the end of last season with the Raiders. So he's an option because the Raiders have a new regime. They brought in Geno Smith. there is no real attachment to Aiden O'Connell as their backup quarterback. So Aiden O'Connell, possibly. I would throw Jake Browning out there, but Jake Browning is probably the Joe Burrow insurance, because Jake Browning was actually really good with the Bengals 2 years ago down the stretch where he won a number of games for the Bengals. He's a sneaky, decent backup, but I would say that he's probably in Cincinnati just in case Joe goes down again so that they can win some games with that backup quarterback option. Mac Jones is signed with the 49ers, so unfortunately, he's probably not an option. I don't think the 49ers would sign him and then trade him. I think they want a solid quarterback that can run their system in case Brock Purdy gets hurt, because Brock Purdy has been hurt now twice. So that's a position that they do need, a backup quarterback. So I don't think Mac Jones is an option. One intriguing option is Will Levis. Will Levis is an option because Will Levis, obviously Cam Ward is going to be drafted by the Tennessee Titans first overall in the 2025 NFL draft. Will Levis is an option because Will Levis has at least boom or bust upside, downside. Like, you're rather going to have, okay, some pretty good stuff. He's got a strong arm. I like his mentality. I like his leadership skills. I like his energy. He can move. He's physically a starting quarterback. Can Kellen Moore mold him into a starting quarterback mentally? Right? Mentally, there's a couple screws loose with Will Levis in terms of his game. He's a little bit too aggressive. Can you hone that in and use the raw skills that he does have? Because Tennessee might be wanting to move on from Will Levis because they don't want that distraction in their building. They would rather let him go, let Cam Ward have this team, and let Cam Ward soar while Will Levis could see a new home, right? So I think Will Levis is one of the more likely ones that could be traded for because he has been a starting quarterback. He is a recent draft pick. He's on a cost control contract. He still has tangible upside. I could buy into that. Malik Willis is another guy that could be traded for. He's been discussed in trade opportunities in the past. He was very good for the Packers last year in spot duty for Jordan Love. That being said, if Jordan Love does go down again, the Packers are risking potentially not having a backup. But Malik Willis is athletic. He has a strong arm. He can make plays on the move. And he has grown as a player in the NFL. He looked a lot better last year than he did a couple years ago. Those are options. Andy Dalton is another option. Carolina, he was in New Orleans before. I doubt that he would be the guy they would look at, but he was in New Orleans before. He's actually played pretty well the last couple of times he's played. So Andy Dalton is an option. And of course, Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins is the biggest trade option. Kirk Cousins, Atlanta could trade him, but the thing is, he's in the division. Okay? That's a problem, right? Does Atlanta want to give Kirk Cousins to the Saints? Maybe. If the Falcons truly believe that Kirk Cousins sucks and he's washed, why not? You know, like, if the Falcons think that Kirk Cousins is no good anymore, why not give him to the Saints? Like, the Patriots traded Drew Bledsoe to the Buffalo Bills. It's happened before. We've seen it happen before, right? But Kirk Cousins, the thing that I would buy into with Cousins if this move were to be made is early in the year, he was good. Objectively, he was good. He led a number of comebacks, a number of 2-minute drills to get them victories, a great overtime victory over Tampa Bay, a great close win in the fourth quarter and a comeback over Philadelphia. Physically, he dwindled down the stretch. And I think a lot of that had to do with the Achilles. Another year removed from the Achilles, more recovery time, more strength training. Could he have a stronger arm? Could he have stronger legs? Could he be just a more closer to what he was in Minnesota? Could he just be a little bit physically improved from the form we saw in Kirk Cousins in last year down the stretch? So Kirk Cousins is an option. He's been floated out there for Cleveland. Cleveland just signed Joe Flacco. It feels like Cousins might have to just sit on the bench and his contract is just going to go to waste in Atlanta. So if Atlanta wants to get something out of it, the Saints might be desperate enough to make that move. And then, of course, guys, we're going to shift our attention to the draft. All right? We're going to shift our attention to the draft. There's a number of options in the draft, and we're going to go over all of them, and I'll give you kind of my opinion on it. Chip says Sanders time, move up, go get him. It would not cost us much for a QB of the future. And now, RS says Sanders. Everybody seems to want Sanders. Sanders sucks behind a bad O-line, which we have, says that guy. Sanders is the only option. I would not say he is the only option. I personally am not a fan of Shedeur Sanders as a player. I like him I wouldn't say I'm not a fan. I would just say I'm not as high on him as a lot of other people. That's what I would say. But I like him from a personality standpoint. I think he immediately could go into New Orleans, be their starter, and uplift the franchise and give the fan base hope. I think if he does have protection, I think if he does work within a system for Kellen Moore where he's getting the ball out quick, where he's playing his brand of football, which would be accurate, get some yards after catch to guys like Olave and Shaheed, Alvin Kamara, that sort of thing, I could see it working. I feel like Kellen Moore and Shedeur would be a nice combination. I feel like Moore would understand how to get the most out of Sanders. I think that would make a lot of sense from a fit perspective. Now, obviously, the offensive line is a little bit of a concern, but Sanders dealt with a pretty poor offensive line at Colorado. So if that's the reason it fails, that's the reason it fails. But I actually think, Sanders is somewhat limited from a physical perspective. He doesn't have a super strong arm. He is not very quick or agile. And his extension skills are not what you would want from a franchise quarterback, in my opinion, as well as the fact that I think he's a little overrated from like a post-snap vision standpoint. Maybe that had a lot to do with the pressure he was under, but it just felt like he needs to work on his game, processing defenses, going through his reads, and making, the right read. But I like how he throws the football. I love his mechanics, and I love his personality. So there's enough to work with there to buy into. Can Kellen Moore take that quarterback, make him a little bit more refined mentally processing a defense? And can you support him with some protection and a running game? If that's the case, he's a guy that you feel like you could win with, because I think that he can lead a team. So I could see that going down at number 9. I don't even know if they have to trade up, because when you really think about it, the Raiders and the Jets are not taking a quarterback. Like, Justin Fields and Geno Smith are their solution this season and potentially beyond. I doubt it for the Jets, but at least for this season. Now, when you look at the top 3, it doesn't feel like he's getting inside. He's not going inside the top 3. It feels like it's going to be in some way, shape, or form Cam Ward, Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter in the top 3, most likely. At number 4, the Patriots don't need a quarterback. At number 5, Jacksonville does not need a quarterback. So Carolina doesn't need a quarterback who's in front of them. Maybe they do, but they won't take one. So I don't know if they need to trade up. Now, the question would be, does another team want to trade up? That's the question. Like, are the Steelers enticed to trade up? Right? Is there a team out there that wants to trade up for Sanders? That's where maybe they would have to trade up. But honestly, I think they could stick and pick at 9 and get him. Now, if they want to be extra careful and extra safe, they could kind of do what the Vikings did last year and like maneuver their way into getting their guy, right? Or even what the Broncos. I think the Broncos, didn't they move up just a little bit to get their guy as well? So I don't quite remember, but I feel like they don't have to go above and beyond to secure Sanders. Like, if they want to move up a couple spots, maybe they have to do that, but they're in a good position to get Sanders if they want him at number 9. Okay. After that, in terms of the draft, Jaxson Dart. Now, the thing is about Jaxson Dart is, how do the Saints view Jaxson Dart versus Shedeur Sanders? Because there are some people that like Dart more than Sanders. I think they're fairly similar. They're actually very similar as prospects. They have similar strengths and weaknesses, actually. I would argue that neither have the strongest arm and neither are the most athletic. I'd actually lean towards Dart in terms of his athleticism. But both are accurate passers, especially in the middle of the field. I actually like how Dart processes a little bit more, but he was in a much simpler college-y offense where there's a lot more RPOs and quick first reads. And I think that Dart has a little bit more rushing. I think Sanders is a little bit better as a pure passer. But they're fairly close. So if Sanders for some reason went in the top 3, I feel like Dart, they could pick Dart at 9 if they like him that much. They could pick him at 9. Dart might last to the second round. Like, is anybody going to pick Dart? Are the Steelers or the Rams, who've been rumored to pick Dart at times in mock drafts, would they pick Jaxson Dart? I don't know, man, but it's a possibility. It's a possibility. I also feel like with Jaxson Dart in particular, Kellen Moore coming from Philadelphia and what he was able to do with Jalen Hurts, you really watch the Eagles offense, and a lot of it was like first read or like very simple reads, not super elaborate. I feel like you could take a quarterback coming from Ole Miss where, it's a lot of that sort of play action stuff, a lot of quick decision-making with those quick RPOs. I could see Kellen Moore doing something with Jaxson Dart as well. So I think either quarterback he could maybe build an offense around. A lot of this is going to come down to Kellen Moore's preference. As a former quarterback himself, it's going to come down to his preference on which player he wants to deal with, which player he thinks can fit the best, right? But I feel like to some degree he's moldable because he's worked with Dak Prescott. He's worked with Justin Herbert. He's worked with Jalen Hurts. He's worked with all these guys to a fairly successful level, right? Then beyond those two guys, Tyler Shuck, I think, is very underrated in this draft class. He has more physical ability than Sanders or Dart, in my opinion. His problem is his injury history and to some degree his age, but he didn't play that much. So I'm not sure that experience is really the problem. But he has a strong arm. He ran well in the 40, and he does move well when he does take off, although he's not a runner. But he's got a really good deep ball. I think that he's interesting for maybe the second round. I don't see him going in the first round. I think there's enough to scare people off from him in the first round. But I think that late first, early second, I wouldn't be shocked by that. So could the Saints maybe maneuver themselves in the second round to get somebody like Tyler Shuck? That's also a possibility. Later in the draft, I would rule out Jalen Milroe. Jalen Milroe might go in the first round, according to reports. I doubt it. I think he's a second-round pick, and I'd take him in the second round. He's got a ton of upside, physically special, great runner, great deep ball, and the character is strong too. So the problem with Jalen Milroe is that he's probably not going to start for you right now. You don't ideally want to start him right now, because I feel like that could be catastrophic to his development. So I don't think you want that, right? Unless you bring in like Will Levis and Jalen Milroe, or you bring in Aiden O'Connell and Jalen Milroe, or something like that. You know what I'm saying? So it's a possibility, I guess, but it's slim. Now, a guy that's a lot more experienced and could play right now, and a guy that I like a lot, is Dillon Gabriel. He's undersized, but I think that Kellen Moore could do some things in the quick passing game with him. I think his quickness, his playmaking is very underrated. His arm is underrated. I think as a third or fourth round pick, potentially, they could snatch Dillon Gabriel. He has the most starts in NCAA history. He has the second most yards, the most touchdowns in NCAA history, college football history. Dillon Gabriel, he's ready to play. From a processing standpoint, from an accuracy standpoint, from a quarterback playing standpoint. He's just undersized, right? But there are traits to look at him and say, he kind of looks like Bryce Young. He kind of looks like a Tua, right? Like if you could work an offense around him, that is interesting too. Throwing out there as like a fourth round, third round pick. And then Will Howard has been a guy that for some reason the Saints have been attached to. I've seen him in a couple mock drafts to the Saints. I'm not a Will Howard guy. I think he's far too inaccurate, but he's got the size and a couple traits, some rushing ability to maybe be a pick, but I don't think he's a starter. I think he's a project. And then Quinn Ewers, he started a lot, but also I kind of feel like he's more of a backup / project than he is a guy that could step in. Like, I feel like Dylan Gabriel could step in. I feel like Tyler Shuck could step in. I feel like Sanders or Dart could obviously do it. But I don't think that, you want to be picking Jalen Milroe to be your starter as much as he has super upside. But if you just want to swing on the upside, that's also a possibility. So, yeah, I mean, plenty of options. I'll go through them just quickly again. Just name them off for you guys. And you guys let me know in the chat which ones you like the most. We'll go through the comments right after that. So we've got Rattler and Haener in-house trades. Aiden O'Connell, Jake Browning, Will Levis, Malik Willis, Andy Dalton, Kirk Cousins. Free agents: Aaron Rodgers, Carson Wentz. Draft: Sanders, Dart, Shuck, Gabriel, Milroe, Howard, Ewers. Riley Leonard has tools. Yes, but he's probably a developmental player, and I just don't see it with him in the passing game personally. So I think you need him to be a backup to start. Mariota is not going anywhere with the Commanders because he's a great insurance policy for Jaden Daniels. So I highly doubt that he would be traded. It's a possibility, I guess, but I think it's highly doubtful. Sanders or Dart, says Anthony. Rattler, I don't think is ready, and/or I don't think he's just good enough. I just don't think he has it. He just doesn't have a trait that really screams at you. Can you give an opinion on what you think the Vikings will do at quarterback? I think they'll sign a veteran. They might draft somebody. The problem with the Vikings is they don't have a lot of picks. That's the problem. Maybe they could trade back at a certain spot and then get some more picks. Sanders is the only option. You're just hating because of Sanders. No, I actually like him. Like I've said this like 5 times in this video. I like Shedeur Sanders, the person, the guy. I was actually underwhelmed by his film. I think that he could be a solid starting quarterback. Maybe he'll prove me wrong. This is just my opinion on what I saw when I watched him. That's just my opinion, though. It wouldn't be shocking to see him go 9. I don't think they need to trade up. Aaron Rodgers, it makes sense, man. It makes sense. Aaron Rodgers makes sense. It would be a lot of fun, first of all, and it's only 1 year. It's only 1 year, so go for it. Why not? Would rather sink or swim with Rattler than spend capital for a vet or reach? Well, I mean, you're not really spending unless you're trading for one. If you're trading like a 7th round pick or something, a 6th round pick, I don't think it's a huge deal. But Ghost wants to go with Rattler. Well, I mean, if you want to go with Rattler, you might be laughed out of the building. You might be the first overall pick, but hey, that might be a good thing at the end of the day. You pulled the Colts before the suck for luck sweepstakes, right? All right, guys, I think I'm going to end it there. Appreciate everybody tuning in. I'm actually back for another live stream in about 30 minutes. I'm talking about Jair Alexander, trade packages for him for the NFL draft coming up. So tune into that. Thank you guys for tuning in to this breaking news. Derek Carr is out. What does that mean for the Saints? I left you the options. I'm not sure. I think most likely they draft somebody. Most likely they draft somebody. That's where I'm leaning. Sanders, Dart, most likely. But don't rule out Kirk Cousins, Aaron Rodgers, Will Levis, or any of these names that I brought up here. Thanks for watching. It's Mitch. Follow me on the app, and we'll see you soon. Peace.